Hey guys, it's Bonnie. Sorry if I sound so disgusting and look so disgusting, but I'm so sick right now. But I still wanted to film this video. So, let's just get started. Anyway, so today we're here to talk about Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. Maas, damn it. This is the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series. I think it's gonna be a 6-book series, right? Yes. And if you haven't read the other 3 books in this series, you should probably leave because I'll probably spoil those books in both the review part of this and definitely the discussion. So, this video is going to be split in kind of 2 parts. The first part is just going to be a non-spoiler review, so if you haven't read this book yet, you can watch that and get my general opinions on it. And then the second part is going to be a discussion where if you have not read this yet, you will then have to leave or forever be spoiled. But we're starting with the review, so let's do that. Aelin was sailing back from Wendlin, which is where she spent the entire book 3. There's that whole crazy thing with the king and Aedion and Dorian and Chaol and Sorsha, where the king killed Sorsha and he put a collar on Dorian and Chaol escaped as now a traitor and Aedion's in the prison, dungeons or whatever, sentenced to execution. Holy crap, we left off on a lot of crazy things happening and there's a lot of just suspense going into this book. Like, oh my god, my voice, why? I'm like a demon. I sound like one of those bald demons. I'm so sorry. So going into this book, there was a lot of suspense and a lot of things I wanted to see happen, and basically everything happened. Like, so much happened in this book. It makes sense. It's almost 700 pages. It's a huge book, but it is so action-packed and plot-filled, and I loved it so much. I noticed with a lot of the other Throne of Glass books, because I just recently read this series, that a lot of the action tended to just happen in the last 100 or so pages. But in this book, there was constantly things going on, constantly things keeping me excited and like just wanting to keep reading. So the plot in this book, A+. It was so good. However, there's also a conflicting part of this book that makes me wonder if I should lower my rating on Goodreads, because I did give it a 4.75 because when I finished this book I was like, incredible, amazing, I need the next one now. And I still feel like that. However, there is some serious character development issues in this book. Sarah J. Maas, what are you doing? I like to read other people's reviews when I finish things just so I can kind of see different sides of views, see if maybe I missed something. And while I didn't miss this part when like thinking of how I felt about it, it definitely was more brought to my attention when I was reading other people's reviews, because there are some pretty negative reviews about this book out there. I've read people who said they're done with this series because of this book. I really can't get on to exactly what the issues are in just this review section because I don't want to spoil you at all. But there was definitely some major character development issues, and I'm going to talk about them in the discussion, but Sarah, what are you doing? But besides those major issues, it is hard for me to rate this any lower because besides the one thing, it was so good. It was just, it wasn't even all the characters. It was just like, it surrounds 3 of them, basically. And besides that, it was just so wonderful and so good. I guess I won't give it a definitive star rating then, but my Goodreads one is 4.75, and now you know my issues with it. So basically, I'm just going to leave it at that. So that is going to be it for the review section of this video. I am now going to move on in to the discussion. So if you haven't read this book, you better go, because the spoilers are coming. Bye people that don't want spoilers. Okay, so like I said with this book, there were things that I liked, that I loved, the plot, and things that I didn't, the character development. So first, I'm going to go into more detail about the plot. Have my little notebook here. I wrote notes after I finished reading it instead of during it because I'm dumb, but whatever. The very first chapter, we start out with that awful little update on Dorian, and I'm just like, my sweet cinnamon roll. I really talked about the Throne of Glass series before on my channel because, like I said, I just recently read all the books. And I don't know, I was never like a specific team. I guess I was more Team Chaol. I was definitely more Team Chaol. But I loved all the characters. So like Dorian, I love him so much. And I was just like, why must this be happening to him? It's not right. It's not fair. What I was most looking forward to in this book was Aelin and Arobynn talking again and finally having Arobynn in the actual series instead of just the novellas and hearing about him all the time. I was so ready for that. We got it. So very cool. I mean, Arabin's awful, but you know, it was very cool. Aelin and Kale finally see each other again, and I'm just like, let's go. That's, this is where we start with the issues, because it doesn't make any sense. I'll wait to get to that, and to get into the character, we'll wait, but another thing I was really looking forward to in this book was Aedion getting rescued, and he does, and him and Aelin finally reunite, and it was so wonderful. Like, oh, I love Aedion so much too. Like, I love all the characters in this book so much, so I don't want any of them to die, and it's really, really hard because eventually they're gonna die. But their reunion is so cute, and I'm just like so ready for like the kids of Terrasen to rise up, take back their land and power and stuff. Like, so here for it. There's more Manon chapters in this book, just like they had with Heir of Fire. I really did not like her chapters in Heir of Fire, where there was some interesting things going on. I was just never a big fan of Manon, and I wasn't in this book either until like halfway to the end. Then I was like, I find it to be really crazy with the whole witches being like bred with the Vogue princess though, and like, what? Why would you ever say yes to that? Like, that's what, that's just crazy. Another thing I liked about the Manon chapters was we got to see a lead. Incredible. We learned about her in the last book, I think, right? I can't really remember. They're all a blur right now. But that was really exciting to have her there and just have another child of Terrasen who can hopefully return home and, you know, be on the court and all that fun stuff. Whatever, I don't know, kingdom stuff. When Rowan came back, which he came back pretty quickly in my opinion. I know a lot of people are like, where's Rowan? But he came back a little quickly, and here's my problem. I definitely ship Rowan and Aelin. I do. Do make sense together. However, their relationship was very, very, very rushed. In Heir of Fire, they were definitely just friends, definitely platonic, and then she sees him for the first time in Queen of Shadows, and it's like, my long lost love, and I'm just like, what? They don't actually, you know, get together right away. There is that immediate romantic and definitely sexual tension, and it just seemed a little too fast for me. Really broke my heart was when Aedion had to learn that Rowan already gave her that stupid blood oath. Like, that was Aedion's right. How dare he? Like, honestly. Then Lorcan came in and he's like, yo, I stole Maeve's ring that you gave her because you were dumb and it can like stop all the Valg power, so you know, I'll give you this ring if you give me that word key. First thing I thought when that happened was, bitch better get that ring for Dorian. That was my first and only thought. Like, I didn't care about Aelin having the ring for herself. I was just like, you gotta get that for Dorian because you can save him. But then we have our next and final meeting with Arabin, and when he put that like Valg black ring on her, I was like, I actually listened to the audiobook for a lot of this book because I was hella sick and I didn't always feel like reading. So I was actually listening during that part, and so I wasn't like expecting it. Like, my eyes didn't like go down on the page and like spoil myself like I always do. So it was just like, and like I paused it because I wanted to go get a snack. So I'm like sitting here like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? And then it's just like, oh, Rowan and Aedion heard the whole thing. Oh, so Lena was just kidding. She planned the whole thing. Oh, never mind. I've seen some people say they didn't like how Arabin died, that it was kind of like a cheap, kind of easy way out. But I really loved it. I thought it made sense because obviously he's not gonna expect Lysandra to kill him, and Lysandra deserved to kill him. Like, oh my god, that Lysandra. I love Lysandra so much. I'm so glad that Sarah J. Maas took her character, MAAS, damn it. I'm so glad she took her character and just completely changed her from what we know of in the novellas. So like, yeah, rock on. Aelin was such a badass bitch during that whole thing. Like, she made it so Arabin seemed like he could, you know, put the ring on her, but nope, trick. Killed him, bam, changed his will so she got all his money. She's such a badass bitch. I love it. And they go down to that creepy bone temple thing and learn about that demon king, which was just like, oh, okay, that's creepy. I wasn't sure like if he had risen or not, but finding out that he had, I was just like, oh, you know, I should have realized that right away, but I didn't. Then we have Lysandra's rescue and the Manon and Aelin fight, which was so awesome. I haven't really liked Manon in the series at all, But when they were fighting and Manon almost died, I was like, oh my god, she needs to save her. I don't know why. After that Manon and Dorian interaction, I just knew she was going to be a vital part of saving Dorian somehow. And she was. So thank God that, you know, Aelin became a little unbloodthirsty like she had been in this entire book and saved Manon. Thank the Lord. So we're getting to like the endish of the book, like the last third or so, whatever. And finally, Celaena and Chaol, Aelin and Chaol, whatever, are finally starting to not be so angsty and annoying with each other like they have been throughout this entire book. Like I said, I'll get into that more in the character development section, but like, about time, but like, why did you sink this ship, Sarah J. Maas? Manon leaves her little note for Aelin and the others to see, you know, which killer the human is still inside or whatever, which thank God, because if Dorian died, no. I was Chaol through the whole book, being like, we cannot kill him. And then he was like, oh, maybe I should kill him. And I was just like, Chaol, I'm gonna slap you, you know better. Then we had the big end sequence where they were going to the castle. Aelin was gonna confront the king. They were gonna blow up the tower so that magic would be free. And so much shit happened. First of all, Rowan and Aedion in the tunnel, really, really nice. I liked seeing them being so like buddy-buddy and like, oh brother, I'll save you. What I really liked was that Lysandra had to go in there and save all their asses. That was badass, and I loved it. We had Chaol basically sacrificing himself for Dorian, and I was sobbing. I really did think he was going to die, and it just hurt. I wasn't ready for him to die. Like, I knew at some point he would probably sacrifice himself for Dorian in this series, but I was hoping it would be, you know, never, but at least in the books later. But thankfully, he didn't actually die, but it teared me up anyway. Have Aelin and Dorian then confronting the king. Aelin puts the ring on his finger, and Dorian comes back and he rips that collar off his neck, and I'm just like, that's right. I'm really worried about Dorian for a lot of the book. So it was just like such a relief. Even though I knew when the ring was introduced, part of me knew like that was gonna save Dorian, but I didn't let myself get my hopes up, but it happened. Thank the Lord. And then they're killing the king, and the king is like, hey, it's not really me. I was just controlled. Oh my god, it's Duke Parrington. Like, it's all him. Just, like, kill me and save me. Thank you, Aelin. I love you so much. I'm your biggest fan. I just didn't understand that at all. Duke Parrington is apparently the new bad guy. No, I don't. If that ends up being the case, I'm going to be highly disappointed. I hope it's a lie. I hope there's somebody else is the big bad evil person. I figured at this point in the book that it wouldn't be the king because they obviously were going to defeat him. But Duke Parrington, that's the most like boring thing. And it really doesn't make sense if you go back in the book. So like, Sarah, I hope you're being tricky, because if it's actually Duke Parrington, that's gonna be a letdown. So then we go back to the witches and stuff, and Kaltain is finally taken over. She kills like so many people, all the little witchlings. I'm just like, you go girl, you go. I'm glad that Kaltain had kind of like a turnaround too, and it just adds to like the wonderful female characters in this series. I loved it so much. Sad that she had to sacrifice herself, but I don't think she could have came back from what they did to her anyway. So it was just really good to see her get at least a little bit of revenge. Manon, of course, took a lead, and she was like, go north, your queen is waiting for you. It's gonna be a good reunion. Good reunion. The conversations between Aelin and Dorian at the end, and she was like, oh, I came back for you. Or he was like, you came back for me. And she's like, yeah, but like, did she really? Because she was gonna kill him. And honestly, Aelin wasn't too concerned, it seems, with her other friends that she, like her old friends, you know, the OT3, Chaol and Dorian. She didn't care about them as much, it seemed. She was really into just, you know, Rowan and Aedion, and it was a little annoying. Chaol got injured, he's paralyzed. I'm not happy with that, so hopefully his healer that he's gonna go see in the south will fix it. But most importantly, that conversation between Chaol and Dorian. They're both just like crying, and like it made me so emotional. Chaol's like, you know, I won't leave you again, and Dorian's like, you've never left me, and I was a pool of emotions. Chaol and Dorian's friendship is the most important relationship in this series, and you can fight me if you think otherwise, because their friendship just means so much. Like, if you notice, Dorian really gets like a hold on his magic whenever it comes to like saving Kale, like in Crown of Midnight when he had to stop Selena from killing him, and then in Air of Fire when he wanted to let Kale escape from the king, he used his magic, and then in Queen of Shadows when the king was talking, he was like, what did you say about Kale? Did you kill Kale? And like his magic just went crazy and he was like, screw you, dad, you're dead. And it was just, oh my god, that relationship. And Dorian made him like, you know, the king's hand or whatever, and I just Nezrin, who I haven't even talked about yet, sorry girl, you are wonderful. I loved her character, and she's the captain of the guard now, and her and Kale has had this relationship, which I do ship it, but it also feels forced on me, which again I'm going to talk about in the characters and development section, so that's where she'll shine. That was really nice to see, and when he was like, let's go on an adventure, Nezrin Falik, I was just like, oh my god, my heart. I really love Kale, if you haven't noticed, and I really love Dorian, and so anyone that has to do with the two of them automatically become very precious. Then Manon is asking Astrid about love, because, you know, we had Astrid's little thing with her human man, and I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. But then right after that conversation, or at least for us, she goes off to see Dorian. I don't know about you, but for me, that is Sarah J. Maas setting up a love thing between them. There's definitely gonna be something between them. If it's not love, I don't know, because they've just been having this weird connection ever since they first saw each other. And I don't know. Right now, I don't ship it, but we'll see. Maybe it'll change, but right now I don't trust Manon yet, so we'll see. Finally, the book ends with Aelin and company finally arriving in Terrasen, which ends off the book at a perfect note. Like, that was basically what we were leading up to, and it was just wonderful. It really closed a lot of the kind of things that we had going on leading into this book. A lot of, like, tied up a lot of loose ends, like with Arobynn and the king and Dorian and everything. But it also set up for the next book really, really well. And I'm just so excited. That was the plot. A+, like I said, so freaking fantastic. I loved it. Probably my favorite of all the books. This was just the best, 100%. Now to the characters and character development, which is the worst in all of the books. We have this whole Aelin versus Selena thing. Some people said Aelin has just been really too ruthless and uncaring. I didn't really get that vibe. She definitely is a bit more, you know, ruthless and stuff, but I feel like that just comes with being a queen, which is the role she's trying to step into. It's very different from her role as an assassin. Some people say, you know, you have like Selena and Aelin and they're like two different characters, but for me, I really think they're merging into one character in this book, and that's why we really get a bit of a odd kind of flip-floppy Aelin perspective. I don't know. She's definitely all over the place, very wild in this book, but she's been through a lot as well, and I think you have to accept that, and accept that going to Wendlyn did really change her. Kind of going back into her Fae heritage really did change her. However, what happened with her and Kale? It didn't make any sense. I can understand if they no longer had feelings for each other and it just kind of ended, or like they just talked about it and just wasn't going to work anymore. That is totally okay. I don't really care that much about ships in this series. So it's not like, oh my god, you ruined my ship, I'm so mad. No. It just didn't make sense what happened between them. It was like, in the beginning of the book too, I'm pretty sure she still like said she had feelings for him, but then like she saw him and like they just start being mean to each other, and it's just very out of character for both of them because they've had such a strong relationship. We see maybe if they left off on really rocky terms. She was really mad about him about the Nehemiah thing, but they didn't really leave on rocky terms. She left and she told him everything, and she's like, you know, I would still pick you, but apparently not. I don't know, it just really did not make sense, and it felt kind of like a cheap way to make Selena or Aelin and Rowan happen. Air of Fire, I understand that some people did ship Aelin and Rowan. I didn't really ship them in Air of Fire. I liked them as a platonic friendship. I liked the bond that they had. Going into Queen of Shadows, it was very, very obvious that Sarah J. Maas did not want Kale and Selena or Kale and Aelin to move forward, and that she wanted Aelin and Rowan to move forward. And it just felt very pushed on me. It didn't seem natural. It was very just, oh, they don't like each other anymore. Here's Rowan. I didn't really like that. It felt cheap, and it wasn't, I didn't like it. I actually saw one reviewer call this book nothing but fan fiction, which is a little harsh, but I can see where they're coming from in that sense, because in fan fiction you just push everything aside and put your ship together, and it did kind of feel like that in a way. You can't just push aside and make a character completely different in order to promote another character or another ship. No. And then going to Aelin and Rowan as a pairing, like I said, it was so fast. It was just like this. They went from friends to something more. Never like fully got together, I guess. Well, they did by the end. They kissed at the end. But it was just there so quickly that it didn't feel right. And then there's the whole Nezrin thing, which is another kind of like, I feel, push. Elena and Kayla aren't gonna work out, but here's Nezrin. You can ship him with Nezrin. Nezrin is totally his thing. Nezrin is like kind of like the female version of him. You will love Nezrin. Just ship them. Forget about what happened in the other 3 books. It felt very awkward, and it just didn't feel right. I have a really hard time kind of putting it into words, so maybe I'll link a few reviews down that I read that I was like, oh my god, you're so right. If you want a better like worded part for like what this, yeah, oh my god, words. However, there's also some really awesome character development in this book, particularly with Lysandra, Caltaine, a lot of the females in this book, so many badass, amazing females. And honestly, I love what Sarah is doing for women in this series, because she's really like, think about Lysandra. She's introduced as just like this prostitute that is kind of catty, and her and Selena don't like each other, and it's just like, oh, Selena's the cool, badass assassin, and Lysandra's just, you know, the prostitute, whatever. But this book, she completely flips that, and Lysandra is just so awesome. She is, you know, girly and everything, but she's also a snow leopard, and she like doesn't take no stats from the boys, and she saves the boys, and it's just, I loved that turnaround so much. Speaking specifically about Kale now, I feel like some people read this book and they're just like, ugh, Kale, he's like not supporting Aelin. How awful of him. But honestly, he is like needed. Like, he is kind of like checking her. He's the only person that questions her. And Aelin gets kind of ridiculous when people like go against her. I think she needs to realize that she's not always right, and she has to take other people's opinions into consideration in order to be a good queen. And I think that that was Kale's role, and it could have been really well done if it was written better, and if Aelin had eventually come to terms and been like, oh, you know what, you're right, I can't just be a tyrant, which is kind of what she like leans on every so often in this book. So I think that is about it that I have to discuss for this book. I've talked a whole lot. Enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed Queen of Shadows. If you didn't, I understand. I totally get all your points. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. So I will see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.